Alrighty, welcome anyone who is thinking about joining one of our EFT tapping circles or gatherings. I'm just going to run through the points that I use that are somewhat custom and individual, and say a little bit about their background that you don't need to really know anything about. But this is to help people who are wanting to jump in now and start tapping with us, and those who maybe have been away for a while and want refreshing. So, quite simply, what we do is based on EFT tapping, which is based on TCM, traditional Chinese medicine, the different meridians. The concept it's that you tap on the end point or close to the end point to help keep the energies flowing and keep them be balanced. Um, there's the mindful component to it also, and that we won't go so much into. That we have many different ways that we employ that. Here is just going to be going through the different tapping points. We start with the collarbone point. Collarbone's here, right underneath it, right there in those hollows. I like to use, you can do it with one hand. I like to use both sides. I like the whole integration of right and left, but know that you can use just one hand. Uh, for this starting one, I often encourage people to take thumb and then two fingers. There's energy ideas behind all of this. The fingers can be positive and negative. The thumb is neutral. Those two together make it nice and neutral. Placing it in the hollow there and just rubbing like that to start with. This is where we begin taking contact with what the problem, the situation, the story, the pain, whatever it is that we're going to work on. And the other hand doesn't have to do anything. I encourage people to have it resting somewhere, like say on your belly or on your heart. If it's something that you're completely freaking out about, you could conceivably have it on your forehead. Apropos freaking out about, what this point, this is a kidney point. This is the end of the kidney meridian. Kidneys are associated with shock and with fear. And when we are doing this, we are clearing those strong emotions by themselves. And if we're in a very shocked state, and it's almost so that our energies are beyond chaotic, flowing in the wrong direction, this gets them flowing as they should be. It also very conveniently gets some blood flowing up to your brain, which doesn't hurt. So, this is where we start, and we have our different phrases. We use a lot other than the standard EFT, even though I have this problem, this situation, this pain. I deeply and completely love and accept myself. That is the original. A lot has evolved since there. But this is where we would be really tuning into that. Next point is the crown point. Here I like to take both hands and drum. And interestingly enough, there are times when we are getting quite not intellectual, not cognitive behavioral therapy, not NLP, mindfully, intellectually, dryly rewriting things. We can get a little bit sort of alchemical, shamanic drumming circle like in some of the work we do. So here you're drumming on what is a governor point. This one ends here. We'll get to that point. It actually makes a loop with the conception that runs up and ends here. They actually meet at the hard palate in the top of your mouth. That's why, to a great extent, both in Qigong and in this tapping, I encourage you to put your tongue on the roof of your mouth. That's keeping what we call the microcosmic orbit, which runs down the front, between your legs, up your back, over your crown, and those two meet. But A lot of the points on the head are actually some of the yang points that are not maybe the key ones. So on our head points, we very often go with more obvious meanings to them. And here it's the crown of your head, which is opening upwards. Next point is eyebrow point, right there. And this, if we go in, and again, like your choice, if you just want to use one finger, any finger, I encourage doing like so. This is what I call the eyebrow point. And this is sort of interestingly enough, both close to your third eye and pointing into your mind. Next point we flow on to is the temple point, right there, soft, alternating perhaps on both sides. This is a gallbladder point, and it's your temples. We have a lot of creative use of what we can do in the temple. Next point is in the middle, right underneath your eye, tapping gently on the bone there. That is a stomach point, and we tend to relate to it a little bit more as what's underneath your eye, what you don't always see. Next comes these 2 points, which are connecting this microcosmic orbit, and those I have us tap on alternatingly. Those are the head points. Now we drop back down to these kidney points. Collarbone, holler underneath the collarbone. If you look at this online, since this came out decades ago, it's often called the sore point because this is tender for many people. You know, when you find something that's tender, that's probably the point. And remember these points, this is not acupuncture. If you're close, it's good enough. So this time, instead of doing like that, we're doing like this. And now we're dropping down into the body, into more of the feeling sense, where we're done with a little bit of the thinking upstairs. Kidney, extremely important organ. The emotion associated with it is fear, among others. Next point is here, what we call underarm. If you take your hand, place it there, and then your pinky finger right on that seam. If you happen to wear a bra, it'll be around there, that point. This one we can access either by making a fist, opening up, opening our chests, our hearts, and alternatingly tapping, banking, drumming on them. This is also very often sensitive. It's called a spleen point. It's spleen pancreas. There's a lot that has to do with both immunity and blood sugar issues, digestive enzyme issues. Lots of interesting stuff here. Another way we might want to do this, depending on our flexibility and the feeling that we're running with, can be giving ourselves a hug and tapping on these points. And of course, it's perfectly fine to say, I'm just going to do one side. This is, interestingly enough, one of those points that if you choose to do one side, you might want to choose to do the left side. Next point after that, this point I can tell you many practitioners have dropped simply because, a little bit awkward, incredibly important point. This is the one that in TCM, I'm an acupuncturist and a TCM practitioner, so just feels so important. It's considered the point of all the bodily pains. And being an earth point, it's also about the thoughts, the rumination, the worries. So we don't drop it. Next point that almost everyone has dropped, that is pretty hard to get a hold of. If you think here's the bottom of my ribs, you don't have to stand there and count, but if it's two ribs up in the so-called intercostal, now you're beginning to understand why people have dropped it, simply because there's this, who cares about our liver? Who cares? Like, do livers have work to do detoxing? Do livers have to do with anger and assertion? Is there a reason why we need to be addressing these points? And this is both anybody who's angry and even more so anybody, oh no, we're spiritual, we're not angry. It's there somewhere. Very important point. Next, in classic EFT, there's tapping on the end points of the fingers that to me just does not feel very flowing, meaningful. What I have done with that is to take the very powerful wrist points that we have. We have lung, we have heart, we have heart sac. Really important stuff going on here with lung point. And this we do by tapping like so, where you're happening to get the lung point with something that's very connected to the heart at the same time. And we have this on the one hand. Here in the middle is the pericardium, the heart sac. That one we tap like this. And then we also roll over and pick up what is called the triple warmer, who we will get to very specifically as well. There's also a few yang points in there, but if we are just thinking as we are rolling like this, that we are getting our hearts that need to be open, all of the caring, all of the joy, and the actual so-called negative emotion associated with the heart is excessive joy, like almost hysteria, anxiety, all of that. And then we have here by the thumb, lung points, lungs being breathing in our breath of life, lungs also having to do with sorrow and grief. What comes after this is something, again, that almost all EFT practitioners have dropped. You've got your ring finger, little finger, glide in between. You've got bones running there. And with your fingers, press in to the bones in between there. This is what's commonly called the gamut point. It is a triple burner, has to do with hormones, has to do with just endless stuff, transformative. This is where we get our zing. Now, as far as understanding of yin yang goes, what's right, what's left, I have simply chosen to go with the school that has left as yin. We start with the emptying, we start with the passive. So we take right hand, pressing it in to the gamut point on the left. And then I just add some Qigong moves to this that just brings in so much more flow. If we have the sense that all after we have been tapping on all of these places, the stuck energy has been actively released. We've been saying different things that we're not going to get into here. We're just going through the points. This is the sense that as you breathe in, hands sweeping out to the side from below, you have earth, water, yin energy rising up above your head, opening to yang, air, and fire, having the sense of an energy ball between your hands. You have energy points right here in the middle of your palms that you take and breathe out And whilst your hands are pressing down in front of your body, your felt sense is of that energy going down through the central core of your body and just bringing with it as you exhale all of the stuck energies, releasing that, releasing resistance. We get into a lot of different things of how this more yin, soft piece can be. Next, we take our left hand and press it in on the right side here. Now we much more actively breathe in, calling in energy, taking that ball and having a sense of whatever we have mindfully, cognitively, with vision, with words, with story, with felt, that we take and we bring that energy, invigorating our energy bodies, empowering them to do the work. And that is basically, there's all sorts of variations on it, but that hopefully in a somewhat short, concise form is how we do. So if you have not joined yet, do feel free to hop in anytime we have new people coming into the circles. I always make sure that it becomes a little bit more of extra attention to the detail on the points and what we're doing. So I hope this was of help. And what I can tell you is that this is also acupressure. This is mindful breathing. So if you want to simply do this tapping routine and have a positive affirmation, uh, people often say that the reason why we have these circles with so many different themes, different focuses, is that whilst this is a wonderful home practice to do, people say, I don't know what to think. I don't know how to frame things. What never hurts, and my perhaps core tapping thing is, I deeply and completely accept myself or love myself and the situation. And what I like to add on is without judgment. And then quite often, maybe just sitting here, hands by the heart, open. Yeah. So there is one. And the other thing is to know that tapping on these important kidney points, important immunity blood sugar points. Oh my heavens, we can use some immunity now. Working with our hearts and our lungs, our joys and our sorrows. We don't need to have a lot of advanced words around it. Just being in your feeling as you tap is doing something. And if you want a sense of approximately how long to tap for, 3 breaths. Imagine this as a physical structure that you're going through, and this is an opportunity to breathe mindfully, not incredibly deeply, but certainly not shallowly like we often do. The number often used in Taoist and in TCM practices is about 80%. That's definitely more than what we're usually doing. So if you think just 3 breaths here, your own pace. And what anybody who has tried to meditate knows, they very often say, retain your concentration to the count of 10. And hands on the heart, it's hard to do. 3 breaths before you move on to the next one. So we have starting here with the kidneys. For those of you who are coming from other systems, saying hello, that's not where you begin. There is a system that's having you start at the karate chop point. If you take your and make a fist where that crease is, that's a quite special point. This one might be more fear oriented. This one might be more anxiety oriented, that you could start like this. And this is also another beautiful thing. I'm telling you some of the stuff that has to do with specifics, the Chinese system of understanding the energy, meridian flows in our body. But if you think about it, there's so many of these things that you can just go with, like, what does this feel like? So starting either here or here, and then crown, eyebrow, temples, under eyes, under nose and chin, kidney points, or sorry, collarbone, underarms, ribs, wrist roll, then finally gamut, starting with the left, passively releasing, clearing, and then you're pressing into the right, actively calling in energy and bringing it through. All right. Happy tapping.